The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Debaters Contest. This is the Eldoret region, and I am Austin Nyumbok. Our motion today is nuclear power should be used to help to supply our energy demand. We have Meteitei going against Kabiyet boys. Whoever will be the victor, we're yet to know. Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
Nuclear power should help supply our energy demands. First of all, let me start by defining the terms. Nuclear power is also referred to as nuclear energy. It is produced by converting matter into energy, splitting the nuclei of atoms. Supply, it is the amount of something that is needed to be used. Energy is a source of power, while demand is a firm request for something. Now, in 1978 and in 1973 and 1974, there was a major energy crisis between Arab countries and Israel, whereby Arab countries stopped the supply of oil to USA because it supported Israel. Now, during this time, there was a major shortage of oil, and a lot of countries which depended on oil for their industries to run suffered, and also the supply of oil led to increase of it disrupted trading activities. This led to increase of major problem. Okay, during the supply of oil in Kenya as a developing country, Kenya is a developing country. Therefore, it does not have any energy. It does not have any indigenous oil resource apart from the one in Turkana. It does not have any energy resource apart from the one in Turkana. Therefore, it has to use a lot of foreign exchange to import crude oil from other countries. This implies that during such situations, a lot of money, it is passed down to the cost that the common mwananchi and the common consumer will have to put up with high inflation rates in order to meet their demands. This is why we support nuclear energy. This is why we support nuclear energy, because nuclear energy is in abundance. First, in Kwale, there's a new deposit of uranium. Uranium is a natural mineral of radioactivity occurring, and it has the potential of producing energy for around 7 years uninterrupted. And it's also estimated that the world's radioactivity is able to produce energy for up to the next century. Therefore, investing in nuclear power will help solve the problem, not only the shortage of oil, but also inflation rates. And before the opponents come and say that investing of nuclear power is expensive, let us also remember that investing in SGR was expensive. But look at the benefits that comes along with SGR. So let us not be limited by the problems that we have, but let us focus on the advantages that comes along with investing in nuclear power. Evans Kibungei, Meteitei High School. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, how I wish that the future could be seen. And since we're in a world of technology, I will have videoed the future of my fellow proposers here and laugh at them every night and day. I am Chol Matiop from the great Kabiyet International, and I stand here this very day not to propose but to oppose this motion that says nuclear power should be used to supply our energy. On to my first point. We all know that nuclear power is very expensive. And if you compare now a country like Kenya and the United States of America, they are not on the same level, because United States is developed and they have the ability of getting the nuclear. But Kenya now if, I think, as you are citizens, if the country, the government, as we're talking now, can't even provide unga for the citizens, how do you expect it to provide nuclear power? I don't think that's happening. So, and don't forget that in 2005, George W. Bush, the United States of America former president, signed an energy contract that cost an amount of $2 billion. Just ask yourself as Africans, honestly, we as Africans, I take my example of my motherland, Sudan. How can they afford such kind of money, $2 billion? On to my second point. I think all of you here have heard of terrorism, you've heard of Al-Shabaab, you've heard of Al-Qaeda. Now take an example. If they had these advantages of using this nuclear power to make weapons, like what happened in 9/11/2001 in New York in the United States, where the Twin Tower was bombed by Osama bin Laden. Imagine the innocent lives that were lost. And now you're telling us here to use nuclear power. This will make innocent lives to be lost. So I, Chol Meteitei from the great Kabiyet, don't think this is a good idea. So my fellow opponents of or do I say my fellow proposers, I think you're on the wrong side. I am Chol Meteitei.
Proposition, it's time for rebuttals. You have 3 minutes.
Now, seated in solitude, the Almighty Lord turned to me and asked, Clement Rono, which age would you like to live in? But then I'd first take my mental flight by Egypt and watch God's children in their magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt down through the Red Sea. But in spite of its magnificence, I'd not stop there. I'd cross all those generations, then come to the generation of the 21st century. But before I turn to God, give him my response on the generation and its effects, and the nuclear on whether it should be implemented so as to meet the energy demands in our country. Allow me shed some light. And I must express my heartfelt gratitude to Chop Matiol. You're a champion, fine, but one in using theoretical calculations based on unsubstantiated hypotheses. You can cheat some of the people all the time. You can cheat all the people some of the time. But one thing I want to assure you is that you cannot cheat all the people all the time. SGR was expensive, fine, 3.3 billion US dollars. But putting up a 600 megawatt nuclear power plant only costs 2 billion US dollars. That deficit of 110 billion Kenya shillings isn't much for a country like Kenya. Right now that we are edging, not that we are in the third world economy, we are in the second class economy, almost being rated not very far from the economy of Dubai. Secondly, it's not the work of the government to supply food, but let me tell you, in 1996, liberalization took place, and this is why we have non-governmental organizations such as Red Cross stepping in so as to feed people. But let me flip the coin over and talk of old-fashioned attitudes. Geothermal, wind, solar, hydroelectric, and using fuel so as to generate power. Now, ecological organizations such as Greenpeace have had anti-nuclear bias in the past. Fine, no problem with that. But as time goes by, they realize that the increasing number of environmentalists in this world are changing minds, not because nuclear power is expensive. It's expensive to find it, but very much cheap in running it. It's because it is good, solid, scientific, and the best of all, environmental friendly. Let me flip over to the factor of a million. 1 gram of uranium yields about as much energy as a ton of coal or oil, making it known as a factor of a million. No problem with that. Now, the spent fuel is reprocessed to separate 3% of the radioactive fission products, and the heavy elements to be vitrified for safe and permanent storage. The rest of the 97% uranium and plutonium is recovered into new fuel elements to produce more energy. Then I'd turn to the Almighty and tell him, if you add me many, many more years so that I can see the deficit of the fossil fuels and the upcoming of the nuclear energy in our country and Africa at large. Strange the statement to make, but one thing I know is that only when it is dark enough can you say the stars be blessed.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your cross-examination.
I'm Brian Kimtai from the Great Kabiyet International. I've traveled from the land of rocks to the green lands to come make it happen. I guess to the second proposer, you talked about solar energy and hydroelectric power. I guess you know that they are both inexhaustible, just like nuclear power. Nuclear power, which is very harmful and dangerous to our society and our environment. To such people like me who love the mother nature, the environment, which is made up of very, very, very delicate things. For instance, we all know that we all know nuclear have produce radioactive, which is very dangerous to our environment. For instance, the incident that happened in 2011 is still lingering in my head as if it was yesterday. The incidents in Japan, Fukushima, that costed 160,000 lives. And it has made our land inflammable, these lands which are going to take centuries to regain its fertility. The United States environmental agencies has confirmed that radioactivity is very dangerous to our environment. Thus, it may take 1,000 years to control or to know how to curb this problem of radioactivity. To my second point, it has created tension. The terrorists, we all know the nuclear project or plant produces byproduct, or I can call waste product, which the terrorists use to make their weapons. These weapons, which they are going to make, are very dangerous to our lives. And for instance, the issue of the United States of America and the Northern Korea, I guess, it's creating a lot of tension because we all know radioactivity is not going to affect the two nations. It's going to affect our world, the whole world.
Thank you very much for your questions. The proposers have been asked, why prioritize nuclear power? And the opposition have been asked, will nuclear power still have negative effects even if it's controlled? I now invite the third proposer to answer their question.
I'm Timothy Biama from Meteitei School. Now, A.F. Abbott, the former head of physics department at Latymer Upper School in London, said that nuclear power does not come from the sun, nor does it come from geothermal power, but was harnessed and absorbed into the atomic nuclei when the universe was being created in the Big Bang Theory. Now, Brian, you asked a question. Why should we get interested in nuclear power? That's a wide question, for example. Oh, okay. The first answer is that it's long-lasting. 2, it's clean. 3, it's efficient. 4, it's available everywhere. Uranium is found everywhere on the crust, on the surface of the earth, actually. And main deposits are in Kwale, Canada, and Australia. That leads me to my first point. It's safe and totally confined. Being 50 years old, there has only been 2 accidents. One in Chernobyl, where there were 4,000 cases of thyroid cancer, but was successfully treated. The other one in 3 Mile Island, No one died, no one was injured, and I thank God for that. Out of 15,000 coal mine accidents, 6,000 are found in China. We are talking about life. We are talking about one precious life that you have. 6,000 cases of coal mine accidents in China. We need to focus into that. Now, nuclear energy has useful waste, I must say so, because it produces arsenic and mercury. That's long-lasting, and I must say it's very useful. It's reliable because it has paramere blackouts and very much paramere brownouts. Now, the scientists predicted in the future that by 2100 AD, that's 83 years to come, that fossil fuel will have been exhausted from the Earth's crust. That means we will have been left by coal and nuclear. So which do you prefer? Coal, of course. No, nuclear, of course. I'm sorry for that. Now, to the next point, it's clean. Compared to fossil fuel energy, nuclear is the cleanest. Now, 23 billion tons of carbon dioxide are produced by fossil fuel waste and is released to the atmosphere. Only half of this is used up by the vegetation and seas. The rest are left on the atmosphere. It destroys the ozone layer and causes global warming. If we have that sense of brotherhood, if we care for the next generation, let's support nuclear energy. It's clean. We only have one fragile planet, only one planet that supports life. So we must embrace this kind of nuclear power. Now, the first opposer, you said it's expensive. Yeah, I agree, it's expensive. But my mother once told me that no one was ever held behind because of an empty pocket, only because of an empty head and an empty mind. Dale Carnegie once said, inaction breeds doubt and fear, but action breeds courage and confidence. If you want to conquer fear, don't sit back at home and think about it. Go out and get busy. I rest my case.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to answer your question.
I thought that the disease of linguistic myopia was a thing of the past. But today, I found some of linguistic myopists seated in front of us. I am Uma Fabish from the great Kabiyet High. On to the question. Yeah, you can control, but remember, an accident is an accident. And remember this, radioactivity or radioactive substances are very heavy to control. They are very much, they need time, like 1,000 years to control them. Will you wait for 1,000 years to control a thing? No, you can't. On to my first point. This motion, in fact, it is just very straight. As you can see, it causes cancer. Why? Just assume you are living next to that power station where that energy is being produced using nuclear products. It leads to cancer, more so to childhood. It causes them, it makes them go through a certain cancer known as leukemia. Let's just assume you are a worker in that industry. You face very much problems, health problems, cancer. Then which leads to what? Death automatically. Do you decide to die after working for a short period of time? No. On to my second time. Not enough sites. Why do I say so? For us to have power plants, we need it to be located near water sources for cooling those substances, those chemicals that are indeed located, that are being used in the industry. And as we know, not all countries are safe from floods, droughts, which causes what? Makes them. And as they are said, uranium is the fuel for what? For energy production using nuclear substances. But as we know, uranium is very little. In fact, in Africa, the most is DRC Congo. The others, do you expect one that country to supply energy for all of Africa? It can't. On to my third point, energy production. As we know so far, we only have 444 power plant stations in the world, which only supply 11% of the world's energy. In order to cater for all the world, for all the rest of the years, we need about 14,500 power plant stations. Where will it come from? Where do you expect it to come from? It can't. Another one, on to my last point, nuclear proliferation. Why do I say so? Assume these terrorists, just as my fellow colleagues have said, they receive these nuclear substances that are being used to transport energy. What are they going to use it for? Making weapons, which are very much harmful. I am Omar Fabish.
Time for final submissions. May we have the proposition? You have 1 minute.
Since 1986, 4,000 cases of thyroid cancer have been diagnosed in surrounding regions and successfully been treated. 9 fatal cases have been reported, but still handled within time. There have been talks about long-term cancers. Some organizations and journalists speculate that there might be tens of thousands of victims still to come, but still it should be noted that they are mostly as a result of theoretical calculations based on unsubstantiated hypotheses. Kenya, we generate our power from solar, hydroelectric power, diesel, and thermal, not forgetting geothermal, but we are still facing problems of power blackout, not forgetting rationing. But look at the following countries: China, USA, Canada, Japan, Italy, South Africa. The upcoming power plant in Nigeria to cost $3.2 billion, Brunei Darussalam, and many other countries. They've never been said to experience problems of power blackout. Why? Simply because nuclear power is the most efficient form of energy that has ever been discovered by man on Earth. Thank you.
Opposition, you also have 1 minute for your final submission.
And because I don't want to suffer, I don't want to die at this young age, I hereby oppose the motion. And it is indeed, we should evidently disapprove, support the motion. Why should we support a motion that brings much harm than help? Why? It is not supposed to be that way. Let's change, be together, make up our minds, turn together, and refuse the motion that says nuclear power should be used to transport energy for our supply demand. Thank you.
For you, Kabiyet. Cho, good submissions, great improvement since the last time I saw you, all right? So that was very commendable. You want to connect and build the two issues of nuclear power and nuclear weapons. For example, you gave the example of weapons, and so you want to differentiate the two when you're giving your submissions, but that was a very good attempt and a good start for your team. Brian, I think this is the first time I'm seeing you on stage. That was commendable. Good examples, especially of the incidences that you mentioned. You want to work on exuding confidence through eye contact, all right? You want to look at the people as you're speaking, and that's something that you can develop over time. Fair attempt. However, how you ended was quite bumpy. We noticed that you just disappeared, and people were clapping after you sat, all right? So you want to end well, and as well as exude that confidence. Fabish, I think you're still the free guy, I know. When you come to the stage, you're not afraid at all, which is very commendable. That means you're very confident. You sort of got it when you started speaking on how nuclear power is a disaster, all right? And you did not nonetheless emphasize on how probably this would have been exuded for you as a team. You want to complete your sentences, don't leave us hanging, all right? As if we know what you're about to do. But that was commendable of you. That was good for your team. For Meteitei, Evans, you start off well. You're very confident, and I think you and Matiop, there's something about your height, both of you. I don't know if it was a choice for the teams to bring in the tallest of all of you, but that was commendable. So you have a presence when you come to the stage. All you want to do is to manage your time, number one, all right? Because you're a sober debater. That came out very well. And it's very important to start your team in a very sober way. You want to manage your time very well so the bell doesn't go more than twice. And you also want to work on your style and presentation so that at least you can engage the people. Let me skip to Timothy. Timothy, you are a good debater. You're well-spoken and good submissions as well. You talked of 4,000 cases of thyroid cancer that were treated. You want to substantiate that according to who? We don't know, all right? So in any submission that you give, you want to substantiate that. And I want to finalize with Clement, because for me, you stood out. You're a good speaker, excellent cross-examination. That means you're very good at your role playing, good submissions, good comparisons. Just manage your time. All the best to both teams.
Meteitei Boys High School was awarded 71%. Please give them a round of applause. And Kabiyet Boys High School were awarded 68%, making Meteitei the winners for this debate. We'd like to congratulate the two teams on stage, and also we'd like to thank you, our studio audience, for being very active, and our viewers back home. Keep watching and keep the conversation going. GDC for SDGs. I've been your host, Austin Nyumbok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.